What's up guys, xHOUNDISHx here with the latest Destiny 2 news. We're going to talk about a new weekly activity in Destiny 2 called Flashpoints. We're also going to talk about earning exotics and some things we've learned, new information about raids in Destiny 2, as well as the removal of Rumble or free-for-all modes in Destiny 2, so some pretty interesting stuff. First up, Luke Smith confirmed in an interview with Jason Schreier from Kotaku that there will be a new weekly activity in Destiny 2 called Flashpoint, which sound pretty interesting. So Luke Smith says, sometimes each week we will have an activity called a Flashpoint, which we haven't really talked about yet. The Flashpoint is basically like a featured destination or a featured location, and there's a whole class of stuff that shows up when it's the Flashpoint. Treasure maps to go and find, special monsters that show up, and they say that they wanted Flashpoints to offer the opportunity each week to focus players on a single location where they can just go solo, hang out, and then get a super powerful reward from it, something equivalent to a Nightfall tier reward. So hopefully that doesn't mean a few strange coins or motes of light. In all seriousness though, Flashpoints sound very interesting. They will basically feature a particular destination on a weekly basis, and there'll be a whole bunch of stuff going on inside of this destination, which sounds pretty cool, and it sounds like a good way to introduce the player base further to, you know, particular worlds and locations inside of Destiny 2. And it's also pretty awesome that they're finding more end game, you know, reasons to visit the worlds inside of Destiny 2. Of course, on top of this, we're going to have new NPC adventures, and they did confirm that NPCs will offer rewards and packages for progression. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but now let's look at earning exotics inside of Destiny 2. And this is a pretty interesting one. So they say that there will still be exotic quests inside of Destiny 2. More specifically, some exotics will be acquired during the campaign phase of the game. Deej said that so many story-focused players would, you know, complete the game, complete the story, and never have actually earned an exotic or anything like that, and that's something they want to change in Destiny 2. So that is really interesting, the idea that we'll be receiving exotics, you know, during the initial kind of campaign phase of the game is something very different to what we saw in the original game. On top of this though, they did confirm that exotics will still drop in the world. The Sunshot exotic hand cannon is an example of one of the exotics which is, you know, randomly acquired. So it does sound very similar to the system we saw in the original Destiny, but on top of this there will be more opportunities and more specific parts of the campaign where players, you know, can go ahead and earn exotics for doing particular things, so that is pretty interesting. They did briefly say that collecting engrams in the world is going to be the primary way to earn weapons inside of Destiny 2, and outside of that, you know, vendor packages and things like that will also reward you weapons. When asked whether vendors will still sell weapons in Destiny 2, they kind of stuttered for a second and then confirmed that you will still be able to get vendor weapons, but the way they said it suggested that it will work a little differently. Up next, we learned a bit about raids in Destiny 2 and some of the systems that will be in place. So the biggest thing here is that there will be a new death penalty inside of heroic raids in Destiny 2. What that actually means though is that you will be able to be revived as opposed to, you know, simply dying and having to watch the rest of the encounter while your team do all of the work. So this is very interesting. The hardest raids in Destiny 2 will have revives, which of course is different to Destiny 1. I imagine that part of this is to support the new guided game system. You know, it wouldn't be all that fun for a player to be guided in inverted commas through a raid if in fact they are, you know, simply being carried because they died or anything like that. And it also works the other way around. If you're guiding someone through the raid, if you go down, your team still have the opportunity to pick you up. They're just reworking that experience a little bit. But Luke Smith did answer a question in a Kotaku interview about support classes and things like that in the game. So he says, I think we've done a really good job of creating a cooperative raid game that doesn't rely on the Trinity, tank, healer, DPS, and all of that kind of stuff. He says that he's really satisfied the team have been able to do that, but there is a second layer of the question that deals with the fantasy element of, you know, having support classes and things like that. And he says, do I ever think we'll add more of those? Yes, in the long run, we will. So, pretty interesting right there. Perhaps we'll see slightly more complicated playstyles at some point in the future. Either way, there are definitely going to be some systematic changes to how raids work in Destiny 2. Finally, we learned that Rumble or free-for-all modes will not feature in Destiny 2, at least at launch. So Bungie says the main focus is on the new 4v4 game modes, and every single PvP mode will launch as a 4v4 mode with maps designed specifically for particular game modes. They didn't rule out the possible return of Rumble at a particular point in time, but they say they want to focus on, teamwork and cooperation inside of teams and the community building aspect of Destiny. Of course, there is still time, and later on down the road we may see a free-for-all mode in Destiny 2. But Luke Smith also mentions the ranking system for PvP via Kotaku. So he says, we're not doing ranked PvP, we have an idea of something we might do, but I don't want to commit to it here because I'm not sure that it's going to happen. If we don't get it for September the 6th, there will be some way for players to show off their prowess to other people, which is ultimately what a ranking system is. We're working on something. Of course, we did learn that there will be quick play and competitive playlists in Destiny 2, but there is no current ranking or reward specific system for competitive play. And this is definitely a bit of an issue. They need to have a reason outside of competitive play to be in competitive play, if that makes sense. Systems like Overwatch Ranked certainly come to mind. It doesn't necessarily even need to be that complicated, at least at the start, but considering they're also talking about free-for-all modes, private matches later on down the road, I think it's entirely possible we'll have a big update which introduces a lot of important PvP stuff, because it does look like PvP is going to be a slightly different focus than what it was in Destiny 1. They are shifting generally to a more competitive environment, or an environment which is actually compatible with competitive play. So, it's going to be a bit of a different experience, but I definitely think most of it sounds positive. So for that pretty much sums up our news for today, guys. A lot of different, varied and interesting stuff. We have a couple days left where we're likely to hear new things at E3, so be sure to stay tuned on the channel to keep up to date with all of the news. But if you have enjoyed the video, a like is appreciated below. I'd be curious to read any of your thoughts in the comment section. For now, thanks for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day.